Yeah, so let's get some in-depth analysis on what happened this Friday. I'm joined here in the studio by Guido Steinberg. He's a familiar face here at DW. He's with the German Institute for International and Security Affairs in Berlin, right here in Berlin. And our correspondent in Washington, Amanda Price, joins us there. Good afternoon to you, Amanda. Guido, let me start with you. When we look at the peace talks today, would you, if you had to give them a grade, would you give them a passing grade, a good grade? I mean, was this a successful day?
No, it wasn't. But nobody expected a success. And I said for days and days that it's hardly worth meeting in Vienna because the civil war in Syria will go on. But at the same time, there is no alternative. And now that we have so many countries intervening in the civil war, Russia, the United States, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, it makes sense to talk to all of these players and try to find out whether there might be some common ground at least.
And that was the story today until the White House surprised everyone, Amanda. And we've got President Obama doing what he has said that 8 times publicly that he would not do, and that is send in ground troops in to Syria. And is that the game changer that Syria has been waiting for?
Well, that remains to be seen, and despite what the White House is saying on this, it is a very significant shift. As you said, Brent, the president has repeatedly said that he's not going to put ground troops into Syria. Right now, we're talking about a very small contingent, fewer than 50 special operations forces on the ground there. But we had here at the White House today tough questions for the press secretary, Josh Earnest, about the changing nature of America's involvement in Syria. He insisted that this is no change in strategy, it's just an intensification. This isn't a combat role or combat mission. He said it's simply a train, advise, and assist mission to support the fighters already on the ground there.
Okay, and we've heard statements like that before dealing with the Middle East, Guido. Is this going to make a difference? I mean, we're talking about what, 50, less than 50 special operations forces going into Syria?
Yeah. Well, I think it will make a difference because we have, or the American government has realized that the air campaign has not been successful. And the biggest problem in recent weeks and months was that they didn't find any targets anymore. And this is why they sent special forces now. They will look for the targets. They will give the American Air Force and the drone, they will mark the targets for them, and I hope that might lead to a further weakening of IS, because this is only about IS. This is not about Assad. This is not about the other rebels, not about Russia. This is only about IS.
How scared are you, though, of, for example, an accident happening and Russian planes hitting U.S. troops? That's a realistic possibility now, isn't it?
It is a realistic possibility, but the Americans and the Russians have their standard procedures for decades already. I'm not that worried about this scenario. I am personally more worried about the IS, a terrorist organization, becoming a real state and a threat to Europe. I'm extremely grateful that the Americans are taking on this organization.
I mean, they're taking on a big role here. And Amanda, do they want to? I mean, how much support is there in the United States for a wider U.S. role in Syria?
Well, I think the downplaying that you've seen from the White House on announcing these deployments shows how little support there is for an expanded role by U.S. troops in Syria. We've already heard from Capitol Hill some reaction, worries and concerns about mission creep, also about the dangers that troops could face there on the ground, and calls from members of Congress for lawmakers to actually debate and authorize the use of force against the Islamic State in Syria. That's something they haven't done so far.
All right, we've got that issue, and before we let you go, Guido, I have to ask you about the big white elephant in the room today. The best we could get out of these diplomats was that they agreed to disagree about the future of Bashar al-Assad. Is he basically here to stay for a while?
Well, yeah, definitely. And it has become clear in recent years already that the United States and the Europeans, if they have the choice between the IS and other jihadis and Assad, they will choose Assad. They just don't tell us. But I think many politicians are not that negative about the Russian move as they would want to make us believe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of the devil you know compared to the devil you don't know.
Definitely.
We're going to have to wrap it up there. Amanda Price on the story for us in Washington. Amanda, thank you. And Guido Steinberg here in Berlin. Guido, as always, thank you for giving us your insight into this terrible situation in the Middle East. Well, while diplomats are struggling to even find common ground for a ceasefire in Syria, the refugees reaching Europe's borders, well, they just keep coming in ever-growing numbers. Hundreds have now become thousands, arriving on Greece's Aegean islands every day. They're risking their lives crossing the sea in rubber dinghies. Now, we have this report from the island of Lesbos.
Death washed up by the sea. Lifeless bodies, hopes of a better life ended on the sands of Lesbos. Locals found the bodies. 2 days earlier, they set out in a boat full of refugees. One of them was just a baby.
Let us bring more bodies every day, every minute now. Every minute.
Discarded life jackets on another part of the island, silent witnesses to the drama taking place every day on the Greek island of Lesbos. 200 refugees used to arrive here every day. Now that number is 5,000. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras admitted to Parliament in Athens that he's ashamed of the failure of European political leaders to deal with the humanitarian crisis. Crocodile tears are being shed for the children on the shores of the Aegean. Because dead children always arouse sorrow. But what about the children who are alive, who come here and fill the streets? Nobody likes them. So far in 2015, over 3,300 people have drowned in the Mediterranean. The refugees will continue to try and reach the shores of Lesbos, but Europe still hasn't found an answer to its worst crisis in decades.